Hey there folks, I am the Mighty Plantain. Thanks for checking out this video. We're taking a look at something special tonight. We've got Elysian's Pumpkin Pack. Yes, that's Pumpkin Pack, not Blumpkin Pack, boosh. This is 4 different pumpkin beers from Elysian. Now, I had seen this, a couple of people have posted it to Facebook, and I was hoping I'd be able to find it in my area, because we don't get a lot of the variety packs around here. The local beer stores only seem to be carrying what's selling well. So maybe Elysian beers are really doing better than I thought recently. So this did pop up, and I figured, you know what, 4 pumpkin beers from a decent brewery. I don't know if I've reviewed any of their beers on camera before. I may have done 1 or 2. I'll have to look and see what I've posted. But we'll get 4 done tonight. So they included Night Owl, The Great Pumpkin, Dark of the Moon, and Punkuccino. I think we're going to start with Night Owl, which is their original pumpkin ale. And I'm going to go with Dark of the Moon next, which is a pumpkin stout. I'm going to save the Great Pumpkin for number 3. It's an Imperial. And I'm a little hesitant on this. I might have made a mistake by putting it ahead of Punkuccino. But the Punkuccino is a coffee pumpkin beer, and sometimes the coffee flavor in a beer can be bitter enough to interfere with flavors from others. It's similar to how a hoppier beer should always be tasted after a less hoppy beer, no matter how dark it is. And that's a rookie mistake that a lot of tasting rooms and a lot of microbreweries will make. They'll put your beers in the order from light to dark, completely disregarding the hoppiness of the beer. So one way to, like I said, recognize a newer establishment or somebody who doesn't have much experience with pouring and serving the beers is they should always put the IPAs and the heavier IBU beers last, no matter how dark the other beers are. But that's just an aside. Like I said, the coffee beers can sometimes have a different type of bitterness that overwhelms other flavors, which is why I'm putting the Punkuccino after the Imperial, which seems kind of counterintuitive. But we're going to start with Night Owl Pumpkin Ale. This is our original pumpkin ale brewed with pumpkin, no way, roasted and raw pumpkin seeds, and spiced in conditioning with nutmeg, clove, cinnamon, ginger, and allspice. Okay, so pretty typical pumpkin spices added to a pumpkin beer. So let's see, Night Owl, 6.7% ABV, and no IBUs listed, but also says here it's unfiltered and may contain sediment, so we'll keep an eye on that. Yeah, there was a little bit of sediment coming through there, but that's okay. We just kind of stirred it up by pouring it in. Now, I'm liking the color of this. It's got a nice amber color to it. I guess I'd call it orange. Nice golden orange / amber hue to it. Makes me definitely think of a pumpkin beer. Very effervescent, lots of bubbles coming up through there. Pretty hazy, not surprising for something that's unfiltered and has sediment. And in that haze, I can see some flocculence. That's flocculence, L-E-N-C-E. Not to be confused with flocculents, L-A-N-T-S. The flocculence is the characteristic of being flocculent. Flocculence is, I believe, another way to refer to the actual sediment, the flocks. Anyway, I digress. This is actually my first beer of the evening, and I'm already getting chatty, so I'm going to have to watch that. But it is a good-looking beer. Now, I've had issues with actually seeing floaties in my beer for a long time. I can't get over the mental block of having some particulates in there, or flocks. But I've gotten used to it. because in most cases you don't actually notice it in the texture of the beer because it's such fine particles, and it goes down so easily, and 9 times out of 10. So definitely smelling the cinnamon and the nutmeg and the allspice. There's a healthy dose of pumpkin flavor there too, or pumpkin aroma, sorry. Nice healthy hint of earthiness too. Very pleasant. That's good. That's a mouthful of pumpkin pie. I mean, it's not too sweet. It's got a nice medium to medium light mouthfeel. And again, I'm not feeling like I have to scrape the particulates off of my tongue or anything. But with those pumpkin pie spices and the actual pumpkin flavor, and there's just enough sweetness in there, it's also a bit roasty, that's very reminiscent of a pumpkin pie in a bottle. I don't know if it's quite ready to unseat some of my my other favorite pumpkin beers, but if I were to put it, it would probably be right below those top 5. So I have 5 that I typically look at as my favorites: Pumpkinhead and Smashed Pumpkin from Shipyard, which is a local brewery here. Pumpkin Ale from Dogfish Head. Harvest Pumpkin Ale, which you can't find anymore because they stopped making it a long time ago, from Sam Adams. And I think Fat Jack was the other Sam Adams one. But those were really my top 5. This is a contender for number 6. And honestly, if I were to line it up against some of those others, it might even knock one of those out of the top 5. But it's definitely number 6 for me right now. Beer taste is subjective. That could change. Like I said, that's right now. I'm thinking right now there's several iterations of pumpkin from Southern Tier that might actually be in that 6th slot, or might have even edged out some of those top 5. Well, like I said, I am getting chatty tonight already. But anyway, I digress. We are not ranking other beers. We're talking about this one. I'm going to hit it with a 4 out of 5. Night Owl is a really great, really well put together pumpkin ale. Very reminiscent of pumpkin pie. But because I've had some other really good pumpkin beers in the past, it's not quite... Witch's Tit from Bigelow. That's another local brewery. That's probably somewhere in my top 5 to 10, maybe even number 6. I don't know. Anyway, I'm digressing. Beer taste is subjective, and sometimes it's dependent on what you're actually feeling and what you're tasting right then and there. And I can't really, without lining them up, maybe I'll have to do a comparison video with some of the pumpkin beers out there. Anyway, this one's a 4 out of 5 for me. I'm going to finish it up. We will move on to the next one, hopefully with far fewer segues in that review. Alright, so now we are doing Dark of the Moon, Elysian's Pumpkin Stout. Dark of the Moon Pumpkin Stout is spookily smooth and chocolatey with a touch of cinnamon. Nice. So I was just thinking about this the other day, and there's got to be pumpkin beers out there with some chocolate notes in them, because everybody loves pumpkin chocolate chip cookies, right? So maybe this one will fix that craving for me. Didn't get a really good pour on it, so it doesn't have a great head. Sorry, I didn't do very well with the last one either. But can see that the head is still, it's a little thin. It's got a slightly brownish tinge to it, but the beer itself is is the Dark of the Moon. It is very, very dark. There's maybe a tiny, tiny hint of a really dark brown down there where the glass is thinner, but for the most part, there is no light getting through that. And it is slightly effervescent. There's a couple of bubbles coming up through and replenishing that tiny little head that I was able to put on it. But yeah, that is a very nice dark beer. It definitely looks like a stout. I mean, it is a stout, so that makes sense. I'm getting hints of pumpkin, a lot of chocolate, and some roasty notes in there as well. I mean, that stands to reason with the roasted grain going in. Yeah, general roasty notes with chocolate and pumpkin. Nothing else really jumping out at me. It's got a very smooth, medium heavy mouthfeel. A slight hint of oiliness in it, but it's very smooth. So that oiliness isn't an unpleasant thing. It's actually it feels like it's washing off your palate very quickly. It's going down easy. There's the chocolate. Holy crap. That was a full few seconds after the sip. And as I was talking, I think that stirred up some airflow, and then I finally got that chocolate coming through a little while later. That's a sleeper. That's kind of cool. Roasted pumpkin notes. Yeah. And if you let it linger there for a few seconds after you swallow, it's not in the finish. There's like an aftertaste of chocolate that hits you a few seconds later. That's, no, maybe not a few seconds, but you know, it's not immediate. Pardon. That's really cool. Really just getting the roasty notes, the chocolate and the pumpkin. I'm not picking up on any other spices that might be in there. But I mean, the chocolate and the pumpkin are enough. Like I said, with this being a nice, smooth, medium, heavy mouthfeel stout with that slight hint of oiliness that actually isn't unpleasant. It helps it wash down smoother because it actually leaves the palate. It's like the whole beer is gone. It doesn't stick around. Until a few seconds later when you get that chocolate, that really heavy chocolate coming back on you. I like it. It's not quite blowing me away. Again, it's a really well put together, solid, chocolatey pumpkin beer. I think that chocolate coming through as a sleeper in the finish, like after the finish, is giving it a few extra points. So I'm going to hit this one a 4 out of 5 as well. I mean, other than that sleeper chocolate flavor, it's not, there's not a lot there to distinguish it from other pumpkin beers. I mean, it's great. I would probably have given it a 3.5 out of 5, which on a scale of 1 to 5, 2.5 is average. So 3.5 is pretty good. But that burst of chocolate after a few seconds is making me push it up a couple extra points and giving it that solid 4. So that's another really great offering in this pack. I'm gonna finish this one up. We'll move on to the Great Pumpkin. All right, I believe I neglected to mention that Dark of the Moon was actually 7.5% ABV, and it was unfiltered as well. I'll try to not leave that out with this one, the Great Pumpkin. This is their Imperial Pumpkin Ale. Now, it comes in at 8.4% ABV, also unfiltered and may contain some sediment. Let's see here. Ooh, pardon. The Great Pumpkin is the world's first Imperial Pumpkin Ale. Huh. It's not the first one I've ever heard of, so I'm not going to dispute that, but pardon. but I've seen Imperial Pumpkin ales for at least the last 10 years, maybe. No, not quite 10. Anyway, first one I knew of came from Long Trail. Anyway, Elysian may have made the first pumpkin imperial ale, I don't know. But it's definitely not the first one that I was made aware of. It's packed with pumpkin and roasted pumpkin seeds and spiced with cinnamon, nutmeg, cloves, and allspice. So, similar spice blend to their other one. Probably just bumped up the ABV by using an imperial yeast strain, I'm guessing. Yeah. Sometimes those unfiltered sedimented beers, everything comes through in like a clot at the end. Yes, lovely, appetizing word, clot, but that's really the best way to describe it. Is basically it's probably some living yeast still in there and some other sediments, but this one's actually mixing a little better. The particulates are smaller. It is still a little hazy. There's actually a lighter colored beer than their first one there. I'm surprised by that. I would have thought that it would be a little darker as an imperial, but again, a different strain of yeast probably bumped up the ABV, so the beer itself probably lightened out. Maybe it digested more of the sugar, so it doesn't have as much color. I don't know. I'm just kind of speculating here. But it still does have a very nice amber orange, almost golden orange color to it. But it's a little lighter in hue than that first beer. Slightly hazy and with smaller particulates. Definitely getting all of those spices, the cinnamon, the nutmeg, the clove, the allspice. Little hint of pumpkin. And it actually has a slightly a sweeter aroma. Huh. Slightly sweeter aroma than the first one. I keep saying the first one because I couldn't remember Night Owl. 2 beers later, and the memory's already going. This could be a rough night, folks. Yeah, just a nice spice blend, hint of pumpkin, a little bit of sweetness in the finish there. It's got a nice medium mouthfeel, so even though it looks lighter, it actually feels heavier than the Night Owl. It mostly tastes the same. As I'm getting that spice blend, I'm getting that reminiscence of pumpkin pie to a lesser extent, though. So the flavor profile isn't as strong as it is with the Night Owl in terms of all those flavors blending together, but they're all there. You know, I'm getting the different spices. I'm getting the pumpkin. I'm getting a slight hint of booziness at the end of the sip, though. 8.4% ABV. It's going to have that hint of booziness. You're not ever going to completely cover it up, but it is very faint for that level of alcohol content. So they've done a good job of blending everything together so that it doesn't hit you in the face with that booziness, but it is still slightly there. It's a really well put together Imperial Pumpkin beer. I think I'm going to do this one with a 3.5 out of 5. And it's getting points for being so well put together and so well blended and not having that huge amount of booziness flavor. It's still slightly there, but again, the blend of all the other flavors is really doing a good job of covering it up and making the beer enjoyable overall. But it's not hitting me with as much flavor as Night Owl did. And I am still getting a hint of that booziness, so it's losing a couple of points from me there, but it's still a great Imperial Pumpkin beer. Like I said, on a scale of 1 to 5, 2.5 is average, so 3.5 is a pretty decent above average beer. And yes, I have been cleansing with water in between these beers. Pardon. At least a good 8 to 10 ounces. I mean, it's just a general good practice to get into so that you stay hydrated, but it's also a great way to cleanse the palate in between so that these flavors don't interfere with each other. That and lining the beers up appropriately helps as well, because you're not going to completely cleanse everything no matter how much water you drink in between beers, but there's a couple of things you can do to try and minimize flavor overlap, or whatever you want to call it. But I'm going to finish this one up. We'll move on to the Punkuccino. Alright, and we are up to the fourth and final beer in this pack. Duncancino! That's Punkuccino. Why the hell did I say Duncancino? Because the Dunkancinos, Dunkin' Donuts, is foremost in my mind. Well, fuck it. I'm not editing it because I'm lazy. Punkuccino Coffee Pumpkin Ale. It's a pumpkin ale with the attitude of a world-weary barista. Punkuccino packs a short shot of Stumptown coffee in your pint with just a shake of cinnamon and nutmeg. Does contain lactose. Alright, so this one's 6% ABV and unfiltered and may contain sediment. I'm trying to remember if all of Elysian's beers are actually unfiltered. They could be. Well, all 4 of these pumpkin beers are at least, so. Yeah, just a little bit of sediment coming through. Ooh, that's nifty. With some of the darker, heavier beers, sometimes when you pour them out, you get some bubbles that kind of dance on the surface of the beer, and that's partly due to surface tension of the bubble and the head of the beer itself. But it, those little brown dancing bubbles, it's really kind of a cool effect, and I got that with this. So I like that visually. Not quite as dark as the Stout. Of course, I would be surprised if it was. It's a coffee pumpkin beer, not a stout. But still pretty dark. It's got a nice dark brown color to it, reminiscent of a decent coffee. It is slightly hazy. You can see some light getting through down there at the bottom, so that brown color has a slight hint of an orangish hue to it. Because it is still a pumpkin beer, I'm sure it's going to have some orange color. Not very effervescent. Again, I didn't get a great head on that. I'm really struggling with that tonight, apparently. Either that or these beers just don't foam up that much. I don't know. But I'm liking the color of it. I can definitely smell the coffee in there. Whew, pardon. Definitely smelling the coffee, getting a hint of the pumpkin aroma. Maybe a little bit of cinnamon and nutmeg as well. But mostly coffee with a bit of pumpkin. Nice medium mouthfeel. Strong, roasty coffee notes. That's like a really, really dark, heavy roasted coffee. Almost an espresso-like quality to it. But with an espresso, espressos mostly taste like burnt coffee. This is like right on the border of losing the coffee flavor and going straight over into a burnt espresso, but not quite there. So like a really, really dark roast coffee flavor for me. And then it's followed by some pumpkin coming through in the finish. Maybe getting some hints of cinnamon and nutmeg as well. But I am really digging that coffee flavor in this one. And the pumpkin follow through is pretty damn good. Boy. There's not a lot of coffee pumpkin beers out there. Cold brew coffee pumpkin from Southern Tier, I mentioned it earlier, is another one that springs to mind, but honestly I'm coming up blank when I try to think of another coffee pumpkin beer. It's a really nice combo, and I'm liking it in this beer. I'm gonna hit this with a 4.5 out of 5. It's getting some extra points for novelty for me because, like I said, I can't recall off the top of my head more than one other coffee pumpkin beer, and the way this one's put together, it's really good. It would normally be, at least a 4, but that fact that there's not a lot of other beers that offer the same flavor combination puts it into that 4.5 out of 5 for me. Really liking that. So it's a pretty damn solid pack. 2 4s, a 3.5, and a 4.5 out of 5. It's definitely worth investing in and checking out, especially if you like pumpkin beers. This is the right time of year for it. But that's just what I have to say about them. Hit me up down in the comments or the email link down below. I'd love to hear what you have to say about any of these beers. Whether you think I'm right, whether you think I'm wrong, let's discuss it. As I said before, beer taste is subjective. So, I might try these next week and feel completely different about them depending on what other beers I've had in the meantime, or even what mood I'm in. So, anyway, love to hear your thoughts on these. While you're down there sharing them, don't forget to like and share the video. Make sure to subscribe to the channel. Click the little bell up there so you get your notifications every time I post a new video. Until next time, folks, thanks for tuning in. Enjoy this season. The weather might not be the greatest, but, some people like it. I don't like the cold. But I definitely don't like cooler days followed by humid nights where you regret not putting the AC on. It's damned uncomfortable in here right now. Anyway, till next time, thanks for tuning in. Cheers.